I remember the day I finally reached the summit of my ambition. It was a literal day-late evening after a long, grinding climb through the corporate ranks, when I stood in the corner office of a high-rise building, looking out at a skyline painted by the setting sun. The desk behind me was adorned with an award I had earned that afternoon, a symbol of success that I had chased for decades. By all accounts, I had made it. I had risen from a humble background, outworked and outpaced my peers, and achieved what I set out to achieve. But as I stood there, high above the city streets, I felt an unsettling quiet inside. The view from the top was supposed to be beautiful, but in that moment it felt empty and cold. Throughout my life, ambition was the flame that kept me moving. As a young person, I dreamed of greatness. I wanted to leave a mark, to be the best at something. I was hungry and driven, fueled by a mix of passion and perhaps a bit of fear. Fear of being ordinary, of not mattering. That hunger pushed me through sleepless nights and countless sacrifices. While others slept, I toiled. While others relaxed, I plotted my next move. I climbed, rung after rung, on an invisible ladder, always focusing on the next goal, the next accomplishment. People praised my dedication. They called me strong-willed, determined, and I wore those words like badges of honor. Yet each time I reached a goal, the satisfaction was brief. Like standing on a peak, only to see another higher one in the distance, my triumphs quickly turned into restlessness for the next conquest. When I finished my degree at the top of my class, I barely paused to celebrate. My eyes were already on the next prize, the prestigious job I had to land. When I got that job, I soon pushed for a promotion. When I got the promotion, I aimed for a bigger one. Life became an endless climb, the horizon of success always moving just out of reach. Ambition was my constant companion, whispering more, more, more. I didn't notice as the years blurred by that my world had narrowed to a tunnel aimed at success. Friends fell away, some tired of me always working or talking about work. I missed family dinners, then birthdays, then anniversaries. First one, then many. I told myself it was for them as much as for me. I'm doing this to give us a better life, I would think, as I left my home before dawn and returned long after dusk. But the better life was always somewhere in the future, a future I was sprinting toward so hard that I neglected the present moments we could have shared. One memory stands out painfully. One night, years ago, I came home late to find my young son asleep on the couch, clutching a book we used to read together. He had waited for me to come home to say goodnight, but I was stuck in yet another meeting. I remember gently picking him up to carry him to bed. He stirred and sleepily asked, "Dad, why do you work so much?" "I miss you." I brushed his hair back and told him, "I'm doing this for you. I want to make sure you have everything you need." He was too young to understand, and he fell back asleep in my arms. I held him a little longer that night, an ache in my chest. But the next morning, I was back to the race, as always, convinced that the payoff would justify the sacrifice. Now, standing in that luxurious office years later, that moment came back to me with crystal clarity, and with it, a wave of regret. My son was grown up now. I wondered how many bedtime stories I had missed, how many moments I could never get back. Ambition had given me a stellar career, accolades, and material comfort. But what had it taken? In chasing the horizon of success, I had left behind pieces of myself, relationships that might never fully heal. I walked to my desk and picked up the glass award with my name etched in bold letters. It glittered as the last sunlight of the day filtered through it. I felt pride, yes, pride in the work I had done, in the perseverance I had shown. Ambition had not been all bad. It had propelled me to overcome obstacles, to grow my skills, to strive for excellence. These are good things, I tried to reassure myself, and yet the pride was mixed with emptiness. I turned the award in my hand and saw my distorted reflection in it. It struck me that I barely recognized the tired, aging face looking back. How long had I been running on this treadmill of aspiration without pause? In my pursuit of the extraordinary, I had overlooked the ordinary beauty of life, the gentle daily joys that truly enrich our time here. I set the award down and lowered myself into the leather chair. In the silence of that empty office, I allowed myself to feel what I had been too busy to feel: loneliness. It was true, my ambition had led me to a lonely summit. Many people admired me, but few truly knew me anymore. I had teammates, colleagues, competitors, even followers in my field, but I had lost touch with friends, with family, even with my own heart. I realized I couldn't remember the last time I watched a sunset without a phone in my hand, or the last time I laughed freely, or sat with my wife in unhurried conversation. We had grown apart in the shadow of my goals. She had her own dreams, ones I had scarcely asked about as I was consumed by mine. Tears I didn't know were waiting began to well up. One slipped down my cheek, warm and bitter. I leaned forward, face in my hands, and for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to question everything. What was this all for? The voice of ambition that drove me for so long had little to say now that I had finally given it everything it asked for. In the quiet, another voice emerged, a softer one that simply asked, "Are you happy?" The honest answer was complicated. I was proud of my achievements, yes, but happiness? In that raw moment, I had to admit, I felt more exhausted than happy, more empty than fulfilled. But that realization was not the end of the story. Perhaps it was a beginning. As I sat there, I also felt something else stirring beneath the regret, a desire for change, for balance, for meaning beyond just my own advancement. Maybe it wasn't too late. Ambition had been a double-edged sword. It cut a path for me to rise, but it also cut away other parts of life. Perhaps, I thought, I could learn now to wield that sword more wisely, to temper ambition with appreciation, to strive not just for personal success, but for personal fulfillment. I stood up and left the office, deciding to walk the long way to the train instead of taking a car. The city was alive with lights and motion below me, but above, the first stars were peeking out. I couldn't remember the last time I had looked up at the night sky. As I walked through the evening bustle, I felt the cool air on my face and breathed deeply. I made a silent promise that I would try to be more present. The same drive that helped me reach my goals could now help me mend what's been neglected if I set my heart to it. That night, I arrived home earlier than usual. My house was quiet. My wife sat in the living room reading. She looked surprised to see me. I sat down beside her, gently took her hand, and apologized for being so absent. It wasn't a grand speech, just a few sincere words, but I saw her eyes soften and a small, hopeful smile on her lips. We talked that evening, truly talked, for the first time in months. I listened as she shared her world with me, things I had been too preoccupied to hear. There were tears, and there were long hugs that said things words couldn't. In the dim light of our living room, I felt something light and warm rekindle in my chest that no professional accolade had ever given me. In the days that followed, I made efforts that felt both strange and wonderful to me. I scheduled time off to visit my aging parents. I found myself playing catch-up on the phone with an old friend. I went to the park on a Sunday to watch my son, now a college student, play in a recreational football game, cheering for him, not as an obligation, but with genuine joy. I still went to work and did my best. It's in my nature to work hard, but I set boundaries that I had never set before. I realized that ambition doesn't have to disappear. It just needs a guiding compass. Ambition fueled by love and guided by values becomes aspiration with purpose. I decided I wanted to be ambitious, not just in career, but in being a good father, a loving husband, a present friend. Sometimes I still struggle. The habits of many years don't change overnight. There are moments I feel that old restlessness, the urge to throw myself wholly into work and shut out everything else. But now I recognize the cost of unchecked ambition, and I pause. I recall the silence of that corner office and the ache of missing out on life, and I recalibrate. I remind myself that success is hollow if it stands alone, if there is no one to share it with, or no inner peace to accompany it. Ambition and contentment, I've learned, are not enemies. They can live together in balance. It's okay to strive for excellence and also savor the journey. I can still set goals right, a book perhaps, mentor others, achieve new milestones, but these days I see them as part of a fuller life, not the whole of it. The view from the top of the mountain is more meaningful when you've taken the time to appreciate the trail, the companions on the hike, and when you carry the knowledge of what truly matters up with you. As I reflect on my story, I realize it's not an uncommon one. Many chase dreams and catch them only to find they lost something else along the way. If there's a lesson in my journey, it's that the price of ambition doesn't have to be your soul or your relationships. Achievements shine brighter when they're lit by a life rich in love, friendship, and personal growth. Standing on the lonely summit, I learned that it's not a view of the world that ultimately fulfills us, but our place in the world among those we care about and the moments we cherish. In the end, the heart seeks not just to climb, but also to belong, to be at peace, and that is perhaps the greatest achievement of all.